former WBA Bantamweight champion, in against Antonio Ramirez. Scheduled for 10. It starts in a moment.
Well, while we have a second here, Tom, while we wait for the anthem and our fighters, who are you picking in the big fight? Oh, well, I guess we're ready to go here.
Yes, that's Ramirez.
There's Antonio.
Ramirez has put in an appearance, and he heads for the ring. Lost 5 straight, all by decision. His last win was back in 1993. It's been a long time between sips for Ramirez. He would desperately like to come up with a victory tonight. I would think that he is in very tough, though, against Julio Jorge Eliecer Julio.
Yes, he is, Tom. He comes in 28 years old. Last fought on March the 18th, a 10-round decision defeat at the hands of Willie Horeen. He's fought world-class opponents, though, throughout his career, including former world champ Paul Behnke. He fought twice, decisions. Cecilio Espino, Eddie Croft, Ricardo Vargas, Armando Castro, Joe Manzana. He almost always goes the distance, Tom. He shows up to fight.
Well, we'll see about him going the distance tonight as we take a look at the man who was the former WBA Bantamweight champion, lost it 3 years ago, and is desperate now for a chance at the title again. He is the NABO champion. Was complaining early to Fernando Paramo that he just hasn't been given a legitimate shot to win the title back.
Accompanied by Ricardo Maldonado, who is quickly corralling every good fighter there is.
Well, if you think Raton Jimenez can fight, you're absolutely right, huh?
Julio with an outstanding record, Tom. 31-1, 24 knockouts. Recipient of kisses on the way to the ring. This guy's got it all going for him.
That's right. It would appear that he ought to come into the ring with a smile on his face. An attractive lady out of the crowd to give him a kiss on the cheek. There he is, Jorge Julio. Marty Denkin, who former California State Boxing Commissioner, newly elected, named to the Southern California Boxing Hall of Fame in the ring tonight.
Congratulations, well deserved.
Here's Jimmy Lennon.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we present our featured attraction of the evening at this time, I'd like to ask you to rise for the singing of our national anthem. In the ring, my pleasure to introduce to you a talented group to join us here tonight. Please welcome the very talented vocalists, the Beauty Shop Trio. Thank you very much to the Beauty Shop Trio. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the Arrowhead Pond in Anaheim for the featured bout of the evening, brought to you by Forum Boxing Incorporated and the Arrowhead Pond, along with Budweiser, the undisputed king of beers. This bout is sanctioned by the California State Athletic Commission the chairman, William Eastman, vice chairman, Willie Buchanan, executive director, Richard DeCure. Introducing our judges scoring this bout, we have Larry Rosadilla, Dick Young, and Bill Scott, and a referee in charge of this bout, introducing Marty Denkin. All right, fans, here we go with the main event of the evening. And now, ladies and gentlemen in attendance and boxing fans joining us across the nation on Prime, it's time for the main event of the evening, a bantamweight special attraction scheduled for 10 rounds of boxing. Introducing first on my left, fighting out of the blue corner, wearing black trunks with red trim, fighting out of Los Angeles by way of Puebla, Mexico. He weighed in at 119 pounds. His record includes 22 wins, 15 losses, and 1 draw, with 11 wins coming by way of knockout. Introducing Antonio Tony Ramirez. And his opponent across the ring on my right, fighting out of the red corner in this 10-round main event, wearing black trunks with white trim, joining us from Barranquilla, Colombia. His weight 118 1/4 pounds. His outstanding record includes 31 wins, only 1 defeat, with 24 big wins coming by way of knockout. Here is the NABO Bantamweight champion, introducing Jorge Eliecer Julio. Once again, a referee in charge of this bout now to give instructions, Marty Denkin.
Marty Denkin makes it short and to the point. The tail of the tape for these two bantams. Julio's 5'5 1/2". He's 2.5 inches taller than Ramirez. He's 3/4 of a pound lighter. He's a year younger, and he is an inch shy in the reach department. Ramirez having a reach of 67 inches, and Julio a reach of 66. Former bantamweight champion of the world. Up they come for round number 1. It's scheduled for 10. Julio's in the black, trimmed in white, and the black and red. That is Ramirez. Ramirez, a tough game guy. Obviously, he's been around. 22 wins, 15 losses, and a draw. 48 professional fights. A magnificent record by Jorge Julio, though. 31-1. But Ramirez, as long as he's in there, Rich, I think will give you his very best.
Oh, yes, he's one of those fighters who, shows up to fight. He will earn his paycheck, Tom. He comes out fighting. He's ended up on the short end of a lot of decisions, but the fact is he's fought the very best in the world. But the problem for him is tonight, he's fighting again one of the very best in the world.
No question about it. And, of course, his career, while it may not be a glossy one as far as W's and L's, why, if you go down the list of people that he's been in with, why, he indeed has pretty well traveled all over the bantamweight schedule. He's been everywhere.
Well, Ramirez is determined. He's tough. He's got an excellent chin. He punches and flurries. He comes out to fight, and he lands a telling right hand there, Tom.
He did indeed, backing Julio up against the rope.
Julio started fairly slowly in the last fight that we saw him in against Sergio Millán. He started to really get into gear around the 3rd or 4th round and was clicking pretty well the rest of the way.
Ramirez in the black and red. Black and white, that's Jorge Julio. This is not a title defense. He is the NABO Bantamweight champion, but he's not putting that title on the line. This was to have been a title defense for him, but the original opponent dropped out for reasons known best to him.
Ramirez is fighting an excellent first round. He's come out wailing away at the former world champion.
Julio slipping away from several of the more recent punches thrown by Ramirez. In the opening minute and 10 seconds of the round, Ramirez was very effective, really.
Giving you the quick history of Jorge Julio in the ring. Tommy was a bronze medalist in the 1988 Olympic Games. He won his first 26 fights as a professional before he finally lost the world title to Junior Jones. Since then, he has won 5 straight. He won the championship in October of '92 with a 12-round decision over Eddie Cook, a guy we saw fight Marco Antonio Barrera and give him a tremendous battle. So if Julio could beat Eddie Cook, win a title, successfully defended twice after that, you know he's quality stuff.
It makes you wonder about the body politic in boxing, that a man who's a former champion cannot sit around for 3 years waiting to get another title shot. We'll be back with round 2. Round number 2 from the pond in Anaheim, California. Tom Kelly along with Rich Murata and, of course, Fernando Paramo. You're looking at Ramirez in the black, crimson, red. Julio, former champion, in the black, crimson, white. Richard Maldonado managing his boxing career now, talking about the body politic. Lining up Julio with the forum. I think, as we indicated in the opening comments, Rich, a very smart move, managerial-wise, to get this kid some much-needed exposure and a chance to fight for a title once again. Seems almost criminal. 31-1. Lose one fight, win a title, lose a title, you can't get another shot at it.
Right. And he had a couple of defenses along the way of that championship. And even when he lost the title to Junior Jones, he decked Jones and had him in big trouble in the 5th round of that fight. And here he's going begging for another chance.
Yeah. Well, perhaps things will change in his favor, but of course the first bit of business at hand is to take care of Antonio Ramirez, who is going to need some taking care of. Ramirez has a great chin.
Yes, he does, Tom. That's why he ends up going the distance to great quality fighters. Now, one thing from Julio we have not seen that we saw in the Mayan fight is he's a switch hitter. He'll switch right to left-handed and fight just equally as well. But he has been fighting strictly from an orthodox stance. But I would suspect that soon he'll switch into that southpaw as well.
Well, you know, Ramirez is not giving him much respect in regard to being a former champion. He's just wailing away with overhead, long-time right hands. Stepping right in, got nailed with a jolting uppercut for his trouble there. But Ramirez acts as though this guy was just another fellow at the other end of the gym.
I think that I would imagine that this is the way that Antonio Ramirez has fought every fight of his career. He's not going to give anybody much respect. He's going to go out there and try to blow him out if he can. But he's forcing Julio to fight earlier than Julio had to in that fight with Sergio Millán.
Yes. Ramirez has his trunks are trimmed in red, both men wearing black trunks. Uppercut thrown by Jorge Julio.
How quick he landed that, and he was able to land it with good power, even though he was backing away.
And I tell you, Ramirez just keeps applying the pressure, gets nailed repeatedly for his efforts, but he seems unperturbed, does Ramirez. Gets nailed but keeps walking right in.
Julio himself is has a pretty good chin, although he was down in his fight with Junior Jones and down in his fight with Eddie Cook. But no shame in that, really. Otherwise, other than those couple of knockdowns, he's displayed a pretty good chin in his career.
And he's got a punch. He's got 24 knockout wins out of his record of 31-1. Looking for his 6th win in a row on the comeback trail, trying to gain another chance at the WBA Bantamweight title. That's the end of round number 2. We'll follow Jorge Julio back over to his corner. They grab him and slowly place him on the stool as though he were damaged goods. He isn't. Everybody leaning in and talking to him.
Julio displayed some of that quick punching ability that he's got in that round, despite the fact that he had Ramirez coming in all over him. But that right uppercut you saw right there was a very nice shot. Later on, Ramirez still coming forward, trying to just be relentless in his attack, putting his head down basically, and landing a pretty good left hook to the head of Eliecer Julio.
In the corner with Ramirez, Joe Lopez, and Jorge Maron. He doesn't look any the worse for wear, does he? He came in full of fight, and it's still very evident here as the bell brings him up off the stool and out for round number 3. A little bit slow coming out.
I think we have seen a lot of times, Tom, fighters come out of Colombia who are basically I don't want to stereotype Colombian fighters in any way, but a lot of times they get a big build-up, especially by one of the sanctioning organizations, and they're overrated fighters, and they're really not the fighters that they're reputed to be. And we've seen many times Colombian fighters come here and basically fall flat in their face. But not this. This guy's the real deal. Julio is a real fighter, was a real champion, and a quality world-class pugilist.
Conversely, Harold Gray came to the Forum to win a title, and he was almost an unknown, wasn't he, coming out of Colombia?
Yeah, and well, he fought a lot different than does Julio, but he fought and defeated Warboa in a tremendous battle.
Well, is it because the WBA is located in South America? In the WBC in
It was
Mexico?
a tremendous guess on your part there.
I mean, I was very close. Something, yeah. This is action in round 3, scheduled for 10. There's no title on the line, although Julio is the NABO Bantamweight champion, and Antonio Ramirez is just about as tough as you'll find anybody who weighs 119 pounds. Make no mistake about it.
See how easily Julio avoided those punches, Tom, ducking underneath them and then just waiting for the right opportunity to counter. Looked like he had thoughts of changing to southpaw there. Again, we have not seen that strategy from him tonight, which he did in the fight against Leon.
And you know, throwing a punch and not having it land is almost as debilitating as taking a punch. A lot of energy.
No, not quite.
Almost. A lot of energy goes into throwing a punch with the reckless abandon that Ramirez does, and when it connects with nothing but the evening air, why, it's a tiring proposition. And man, he's winging them from all over. Now Julio moving in on him, backing him up. A shot to the ribs for his efforts.
And I think Ramirez is better off, Tom, pretty much limiting his attack, at least in this stage of the fight, to the body. He was landing some pretty good body shots earlier. He's gone head hunting in this round and has had very little success.
This round being round number 3. It's scheduled for 10 bantamweights. Handful of seconds remain. Nice right hand by Julio. He's got Ramirez against the ropes and pretty much having his way with them. We'll be back. Round 4 scheduled for 10. Interesting byplay in the corner of Jorge Julio. As we told you before, as each round comes to an end and he comes over to sit on the stool while he is almost gingerly placed on the stool. And when the bell rings to bring him out for the round, he is almost picked up off the stool by his handler. As though he were some fragile piece of spode china.
Ramirez has come out very fast here, Tom, and trying to just load up and go to the body here once again and fight the way that he did in round 1. But his problem is that Julio now is getting into the fight. And you notice that Julio is fighting better with each succeeding round. This is going along the pattern of the Sergio Leon fight. He takes him a couple of rounds really to warm up, and once he does, his class begins to tell.
Well, he won't lack for activity because Ramirez is really a walk right in and throw a punch type of guy. Sometimes it doesn't land. More often than not, it doesn't. But head down, he just works his way inside, hoping to catch lightning in a bottle. He's won 22 fights, but he's lost 15. But he has been in against some of the very best in the bantamweight division.
Took Paul Banky the distance on a couple of occasions. Yeah. Same with Eddie Croft. Ricardo Vargas, who we saw the other night against Enrique Sanchez, losing a decision. And, you know, he went the distance in that fight. And with Joe Manzano, too. So he always makes, you know, for an interesting evening of competition for his foes.
And he was standing about just waiting in the wings when the original fight fell out. Matchmaker Tony Curtis gave him a call, and Rivera jumped right to the telephone to come down and get a crack at Jorge Julio, who is outboxing him now and doing a magnificent job with both hand and foot. Rich, he is really bouncing about and doing some nice work.
Yeah, and although, you know, Ramirez has come out and really made him fight and landed some punches to the body, I actually feel as though Julio looked sharper tonight to me against Ramirez than he did in that fight against Sergio Leon. I think we're seeing a lot of his skill, a lot of his different type punches that he throws, and very sharp.
This is going to be, from the looks of things, unless it ends in some dramatic fashion, a very long, tough evening for Antonio Ramirez, who I think has got a smear of blood right below his lip. We'll take another look at him as he turns around. But Julio has really been picking him off with left and right combinations as he pulls his way in, spins him around. And unless he tires of the task, why, Ramirez is going to be the recipient of a lot of leather thrown by Jorge Julio.
Well, he's just too quick for Ramirez. He throws his punches straight. They get there in a hurry, and he can land to the face, and it doesn't appear as though Ramirez can. But
Ramirez is almost tireless in his efforts, winging away. The crowd loves every one of his moves, and they love the fight. It is a dandy so far. Ramirez cannot be faulted for a lack of effort. He has been 110% of that.
Near the end of the round here, Tom, look at Ramirez continue to fight. And he finally landed a couple of shots to the head there at the end of the round after having so much heartbreak in terms of getting one to Jorge Julio, the ultimate sportsman.
Now watch how they gingerly place him on the stool.
Yep.
And they do the same thing to him as the bell, which just sounded, brings him out for round 5. They literally pick him up as though he were fragile. Well, they're Marty Denkin, something they're going to wipe off. Well, there's too much water and what have you over in Ramirez's corner. So Denkin separated the two guys, and here they go again. There is not a cut on the face of Ramirez. It looked like it for a moment, but as of right now, he's not bleeding. He is in the black, trimmed in red. Jorge Julio, former WBA bantamweight champion. Now with a record of 31-1.
You know, we've detailed a lot of Antonio Ramirez defeats tonight, but the fact is he has a winning record. It's not, although he hasn't won recently, he has a record of 22-15, which means, you know, at one time his record was really good.
Well,
in his career.
He ran off 7 in a row, and then he turned around and threw in a year that was 1-3-1. So
when he was having some success, Tom, he participated in the foreign Budweiser tournament back in 1991 and 92, and he did pretty well. He made it into the semifinals of that before he lost. He had a victory in that over Richard Clark. A 5-round KO that was quite an upset that night.
Marty Denkin cautioned Ramirez about roughhousing and wrestling his man around and warned that he would take a point away, and Ramirez just landed a solid shot, and now Jorge Julio comes back with some pinpoint accuracy punching-wise of his own.
Well, if I was Ramirez, I'd pay little attention to what Denkin had to say there, because I think roughhousing is the way.
That's his game.
To win this fight for him, or at least to be more competitive. Get in there, rough the guy up, throw him up against the ropes, land a couple of elbows even if he has to.
Yeah, I think that's his style. I do. I don't think he's what you would call an accomplished, stylish boxer. He gives you the impression that he is a brawler, to be sure. And look at the quick hands of Julio. Jorge nails him with left and right combinations and can hardly dissuade Ramirez. He just keeps coming after him, doesn't he? I think Julio, in addition to maybe some other things, Rich is going to have to worry about tiring of this exercise, of banging away at this guy.
Well, it would seem he could beat him boxing him, Tom, and just standing on the outside and jabbing him. But Ramirez, you know, it's kind of irrepressible. He just comes forward.
Yeah. And he falls into a clinch. Marty Denkin checks the head of both men, cautions Julio. No on the headbutts. This is round number 5. Jumping in, Ramirez lands a left hook. Julio trying to pick him off as he comes in. A wild right, left hand. Seconds remain here in round number 5, and it's been an exciting bout so far, and a busy one for both men. More coming your way in a moment. Round number 6. It's scheduled for 10 in the bantamweight division. Black trunks trimmed in white. That's Jorge Julio, former WBA bantamweight champion, a record of 31-1. He's won 5 in a row since losing the title. Looking for number 6. The very tough brawler he's in there with tonight is Antonio Ramirez, a man who's 28, has a record of 22 and 15 and is just hard to discourage.
This is only the third fight for Eliecer Julio outside of, or actually in the United States, fourth fight total out in Colombia. But, you know, that term you used earlier of exposure, Thomas, I think that's what he's got to get. You know, he's getting it now in the United States, and I think we'll find him probably based here for a while until he can find himself climbing back into the ring with a world champion.
Well, not to be provincial, but to have Maldonado managing him, to have Forum Boxing interested in him, is certainly going to be the proper way to work toward a title shot. As you pointed out, how about Barrera? How about Mark Johnson? They have become champions, world champions, under the guidance and aegis, help, and what have you, of Forum Boxing.
And now Alberto Raton Jimenez.
Indeed. So it is something that has to be done, and Julio has taken what we think are logical steps. Whether he is good enough to regain the WBA Bantamweight title, I don't know, but he is certainly deserving, I would think, off his record, past performance, of a chance to try for it. I don't think you can just ignore a guy who's 31 and 1, a former champion, and only 27, and look at the magnificent shape he's in, and how well he can handle himself now. Man certainly deserves it. And his new alliance, one would think opportunity will be coming his way. Antonio Ramirez is a professional fighter, Rich. He might be a brawler and whatever. He is a bona fide tough guy who's got a great chin. And I would hazard a guess he dearly loves what he's doing for a living as a professional fighter. What a tough customer this guy is.
Yeah, and I'm sure when he was rolling up that great record early in his career, he had dreams of being a world champion himself. And now I'm sure he fights for the paycheck, Tom, but at least, you know, he puts in an honest effort to earn that paycheck.
No question. Taking this fight on 4 days' notice, certainly knows who he was going in against. And he hasn't taken a backward step except those forced upon him by the talented Jorge Julio. Big exchange by both men as the round is coming to a close. More action in just a moment. As they take Julio off his stool and send him out for the start of round number 7, Rich Morano's scorecard has the former WBA Bantamweight champ ahead by only 2 points, 60-58. A lot of even rounds in there.
Actually, I've called 4 rounds for Julio and 2 for Ramirez. I gave Ramirez that last round, Tom. I thought on the basis of his aggressiveness and that last minute when he landed several clean blows that he stole the round on my card.
Which brings up an interesting point if you're sitting at home and judging. A lot of judges at ringside, of course, a lot of people, self-ordained and other fight experts, love an aggressive type fighter. If he keeps walking in, throwing punches, they think that's great. If none of them land, that's kind of beside the point. If he gets nailed a lot coming in, that's beside the point. His aggressiveness does add for something. There's no question about it. A lot of people think that's one of the major things a fighter should have. I mean, walking in and collecting a lot of leather kind of discounted a bit by the guy with an aggressive style. By the judges, I should say. The guy who catches all the leather. I'm sure he doesn't.
Although Ramirez doesn't seem to be paying a heck of a lot of attention to it. He just kind of walks in.
That's his style. He's got lumps under both eyes, some swelling under each one, and Julio picks him off, so to speak. Stoic face. Got hit with the right hand there. Backs up away from one as Ramirez tries to nail his man against the ropes.
But this is typical. This is what we told you about all of these fights that Ramirez has had against quality opponents, against the Armando Castros and the Joe Manzanos and the Eddie Crofts and Cecilio Espinos. He goes the distance with these guys and provides them a tough evening of opposition.
Yeah. Yeah, Julio might have said to himself, what, the other guy fell out, we aren't going to have the title on the line? Okay. I got one out coast through. Who's it going to be? Ramirez. Whoops. I'm in for a busy evening. Oh, pretty good right hand by Julio that sent a spray of perspiration, water off the head of Antonio Ramirez, who's puffiness now very evident on both cheekbones. Both eyes beginning to close just a little bit. Julio drops a big right hand on him. And Jorge Julio can punch. He's knocked out 24 guys and posting 31 wins. Drops a right hand flush in the middle of your whiskers. Why, you could feel it. Ramirez seems to be impervious to it, although his face is showing the signs of a busy night. Seconds remain here, drifting away in round 7. It's been an interesting fight. There's still more to come. You stay tuned. We'll be right back to the pond. Round number 8, scheduled for 10. Marty Denkin checking to make sure both corners have been mopped up to his satisfaction. Sneak right hand thrown by Julio. Nice left hand jab, which Murata scorecard has now upped Julio's advantage 68-65. Having given Jorge Julio, former Bantamweight champion, he's in the black and white, that last round, number 7. Antonio Ramirez is, if nothing else, I would think the underdog favorite of the crowd here.
Oh, yeah.
We can hear people shouting his name. Come on, Antonio. The seats behind us here at the pond.
But he's not coming with quite the same resolve that he was earlier, and I think he's wearing down at this point, Tom, and it's just an accumulation of punches by Julio. Julio's hit him a lot of shots, and there's even times that Julio is able to back Ramirez up now, which he was not able to do earlier in the fight. But he's landing clean shots, straight shots as Julio, and those really solid blows from Ramirez are coming further and fewer.
Yep. Ramirez, hands down, just comes rolling in, throwing wild roundhouse-type punches. And Julio, hands up in the classic boxing pose. Ramirez, a winging right hand, is rather ineffective, bobbing and weaving.
But he was coming in throwing wild flurries early. Now he just kind of winds up for one punch at a time here and there.
And collects a couple en route in. A couple that he can't very well use, like that left hand and the right. And his earlier rounds, Rich, when he did throw them, he'd throw 3, 4, 5, and 2 or 3 of them would land, and they had something behind them. But they have lessened in intensity and in frequency and in effectiveness.
The movement of Julio is proving tremendously effective in this round. He's putting on a boxing clinic here, Tom. It's all Julio in this round. He looks outstanding right now.
And barring some unexpected bolt of lightning, while it would appear that Julio is going to win this fight. We're in round number 8, scheduled for 10. And I think it should be pointed out that Ramirez is a very tough guy, and to the credit of the former Bantamweight champion, why he has fought as though this were a title defense and that he were fighting for the Bantamweight championship once again. He has very much taken care of business. He has boxed well, punched well, acquitted himself well in the ring. And he's in against a guy who loves a fight. Make no mistake about it.
But, you know, I don't think that Antonio Ramirez has landed a single punch in this round.
So, round 8 going into the books, and it would appear into the score column for Julio, and we'll be back. This is round number 9 as they come out. Neither man has been down. The former Bantamweight champion, Jorge Julio, in the black, trimmed in white, has pretty much had it his way here in the closing last 2 or 3 rounds against Antonio Ramirez, who is still as game as he ever was, but a little less effective. His wild swinging punches are finding more air than substance, and he has been hit repeatedly by Julio. Jorge Julio, the former champion, he tries to close this fight, and Julio pretty much having his way with him. Just to recap some events for you, and in case you joined us a bit late, Sammy Stewart came from losing the first 2 rounds to score a TKO victory when Miguel Granados could not answer the bell for round number 8 in their flyweight bout a bit earlier, and Alfred the Torpedo Ankuma, very impressive 4th round knockout win over Oscar Checa from Panama. He had Checa down in the 3rd round, had him down twice in the 4th, and that was that. And it was great to have Azuma Nelson, the super featherweight WBC champion, with us.
Professor.
I beg your pardon, a professor.
That's why I'm called the professor.
Right. Now, that was in response to Rich Murata saying, how come every time you fight a guy the 2nd time around, you just literally destroy him? He said, that's why they call me the professor. 38 years old. What a physical boxing phenomenon he is. Jorge Julio is really giving Antonio Ramirez a boxing lesson here, Rich, in these closing rounds. He is really slipping and sliding, landing solid shots. Uppercut there just jolted Ramirez, snapped his head back.
Yeah, I thought Ramirez, you know, was competitive in this fight, Tom, for 6 rounds, and then he's just basically run out of gas, I think. He just can't get off the punches the way that he was earlier. His punches now, when he does throw a punch, he's more or less pushing it. He's not really snapping it out there.
And he's catching so many more of them, and each one that he catches has even continues to have a more debilitating effect on him, and Julio backing him into the ropes, trying to trap him up against the corner. I would assume, I would imagine, let me put it to you that way, that Jorge Julio, under the aegis of Forum Boxing and Richard Maldonado, might very well, in the not too distant future, get a chance for the Bantamweight title. Former champion appears to be well on the way to winning his 32nd against 1 loss.
Well, there will be a vacancy in the WBC before too long. Randy Tulloch is going to step up.
He's moving up.
Vacate the 118-pound title in the not too distant future to fight at 122 and go for Daniel Zaragoza's championship.
10 seconds remaining here. Nice combinations by Julio against a frustrated, wildly swinging and missing Antonio Ramirez. He caught Julio with a left hand right at the bell, but it was in the parlance of most everybody, too little, too late. Prime Boxing has presented Fight Night at the Pond in Anaheim. Brought to you by Budweiser, the official sponsor of the 1996 Olympic Summer Games. This Bud's for you. To finish up our business at hand, this is Jeanette, 25-year-old beauty from Yorba Linda, was voted by the judges as Miss Ringsider tonight. Give yourself a round of applause. Jeanette attended Fullerton College and added some charm, of course, to the evening's festivities, and is $500 richer. She is Miss Ringsider for the evening, Jeanette from Yorba Linda. Round number 10 scheduled to come your way. Marty Denkin is the referee. Done another nice job. Denkin's very conscientious in his ring work. He has refereed scores of championship fights, named to the Southern California Boxing Hall of Fame. Very proud of that, and justifiably so. But I'll tell you, Ramirez is coming out like... Is this something to watch this guy after 9 grueling rounds?
You love to see it. And Julio's over there doing the Ali shuffle.
That's right.
Ramirez going to give it one big shot.
I think he just did, and now Julio's going to take over and say, you want some of this? All right. I was content to coast through the 10th round, but if you want to go toe-to-toe, I'm your guy.
That's kind of like John Robinson at USC. He always said, well, if the other guy, if you're beating him bad, you know, you want him to let up on him. Well, you know, you want him to run out the clock. Well, you stop going for it, too.
I tell you, Ramirez, for about 30 seconds, was literally hell on wheels. And now suddenly, Julio is giving him a boxing lesson. Ramirez still throwing punches now out of sheer frustration and perhaps loss of energy, grabbed on for a moment. And Jorge Julio just outboxing his man here now, weathering whatever storm-like effect Ramirez brought out of the corner with him. And Ramirez grinned at Julio, and Julio raised his glove in recognition to this tough guy. Now Julio's going to fight him with one hand. I don't know. Holding on to the ring, and Denkin comes over and says, none of that. Don't do that.
Why would you want to tie your own arm up in the rope?
Know. I have no idea. And especially your right hand.
I mean, I can understand resting against the rope, but why would you tie yourself up and wrap your arm around the rope? That's the first time. I have never seen that one.
Nor have I. Maybe a feeling of compassion. Come over here, Antonio. We'll fight with one hand. You admire Antonio Ramirez. He's not landing with many of those, but it's not from lack of trying. Round 10 is just about over. And these two warriors have battled away. Ramirez trying to find one shot that had put Jorge Julio down. It's not to be found tonight, I don't believe.
Now, Antonio Ramirez, there's certainly no wanting for heart in this.
No, none whatsoever. If he isn't careful, he's going to shove Julio right through the lower strand of the ropes right out in the ring apron. 10 seconds remain. Wildly swinging performance by Ramirez. Jorge Julio dodging most of them. Underneath, there's the bell, and they still keep going, and what a fight it was. What a fight it was. Game, but outmanned Ramirez, battling Jorge Julio right to the finish.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 10 rounds, we have a unanimous decision. Dick Young scores at 99-91. Bill Scott and Larry Rosadilla both scored 98-92 in favor of the winner, Jorge Eliecer.